talking about a case that happened in July of 2017. It's on Cosmo DiNardo and his cousin Sean Michael Kratz, and they're responsible for killing four Bucks County boys in Pennsylvania. Let's get into the story. So, between July the 5th and July the 7th, 2017, four young men were reported missing in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. All were found murdered. The victims were Dean A. Francello, 19, Thomas C. Mayo, 21, Jimmy T. Patrick, 19, and Mark R. Sturgis, age 22. The murders were carried out by Cosmo DiNario and Sean Michael Kratz, both aged 20 at the time of these murders, and the four victims were murdered in three separate incidents, and each after DiNario arranged to sell them marijuana. That's how he was lured them. The disappearances began July the 5th, 2017, with Patrick being the first man to vanish. 2 days later, on July 7th, Mayo, Francharo, and Sturgis were also reported missing. Each of the four men were reported to be murdered the same day they went missing. Jimmy Patrick, he was born in 1998 and died in 2017, a rising sophomore majoring in business at Loyola University in Maryland. Was last seen around 6 p.m. on July the 5th in Newtown, Pennsylvania. He failed to show up for work the next day, and Patrick met DiNardo that night to buy 4 pounds of marijuana, at which time DiNardo shot him and then used a backhoe to bury his body. Dean A. Francello, he was born in 1997 and died in 2017. He was last seen around 6:30 p.m. on July the 7th, being picked up by an unidentified person, possibly DiNardo or Kratz. His remains were found on July the 12th, 2017, in a common grave in the Salisbury Township farm owned by DiNardo's parents, along with the remains of Mark Sturgis and Thomas Mayo. Francello's body was the first to be identified. Francello and DiNardo had a good relationship, and DiNardo saying that they were like cousins. As with Patrick, Francello had agreed to buy marijuana from DiNardo. This was the first murder in which Kratz was involved, and the two men both reportedly shot Francello, and his body was placed in a metal oil tank that had been converted into a pork roaster. Mark R. Sturgis, 1994 to 2017, went to his friend Thomas C. Mayo, which was one of the victims, at around 6 p.m. on July the 7th. And both men worked for Sturgis' father's construction company. The two did not show up for work, and the calls to their cell phones were directly sent to voicemail. DiNardo met Sturgis and Mayo at a church to sell Mayo marijuana. Mayo and Sturgis were both shot as they exited the truck. When he ran out of ammunition, DiNardo drove over the still alive Mayo with a backhoe and then placed both bodies into a metal tank that also had Francello's body. DiNardo attempted unsuccessfully to burn the bodies with gasoline. He used a backhoe to bury the tank containing the three bodies. Gennaro, a drug dealer, confessed to killing the four men. He said that he did it so because he felt cheated or threatened during the drug transactions. He also told investigators to find where to find Jimmy Patrick's body, buried in another grave on the property. The only motive disclosed by investigators was that Gennaro said he wanted to set the victims up when they came to the farm to buy marijuana. The investigation. On the afternoon of July 8th, authorities tracked Vercello's cell phone to a 90-acre farm in Salisbury Township owned by DiNardo's parents, um, Antonio and Sandra DiNardo, who also owned a cement and construction company. While being investigated for the four July 2017 Pennsylvania murders, DiNardo also claimed to be responsible for at least two other killings in the previous 5 years in Philadelphia, and investigators have yet to verify those claims. Arrest. Second cousins Cosmo DiNardo, born January 21st, 1997, and Sean Michael Kratz, born February 14th, 1997, both aged 20, were charged in the murders. On July 10th, DiNardo was arrested for an unrelated weapons charge despite 30 run-ins with the local police. DiNardo, the son of a wealthy businessman, and for unexplained reasons, had for unexplained reasons never been convicted of a crime. DiNardo was later released after his father posted 10% of his $1 million bail. On July the 12th, DiNardo was arrested and charged for stealing and attempting to sell a car that belonged to Thomas Mayo for $500. Suspicion was also raised by the fact that Mayo left his insulin in his car, something that his family said that he would not be would have been unusual for him to do. His bail was set at $5 million. The next day, DiNardo confessed to the murder of the four men. In exchange for his confession, prosecutors stated that they would not seek the death penalty. The day after his confession, DiNardo was charged with 4 counts of criminal homicide, conspiracy to commit criminal homicide, abuse of a corpse, and 12 other charges. On July 14th, Sean Michael Kratz was also charged with 3 counts of criminal homicide, conspiracy to commit criminal homicide, abuse of a corpse, and 2 other charges. Unlike DiNardo, Kratz had a criminal history of conspiracy, criminal trespassing, theft, receiving stolen property, and criminal mischief. On May 16th, 2018, DiNardo pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder and was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Later that day, Kratz rejected a plea deal of 118 years with the possibility of parole after serving 59 years. His trial was scheduled for 2019. On November 15, 2019, Kratz was convicted of first and second degree murder in the death of Dean Finchero and voluntary manslaughter in the deaths of Tom Mayo and Mark Sturgis, and was later sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And they talk like this boy was loaded. His family had money. DiNardo's family had money. Why would you do something like this? Y'all have a good one.
The confessions of two alleged killers, their victims, the missing men in Bucks County. Action News reporter Dan Cuellar is live in New Hope, just a mile or two from where the Bucks County victims were buried. Dan, you've got the end of the week update tonight.
That's right, Jim. The gruesome and disturbing case involving drugs, murder, and burials by two cousins on a sprawling farm has left many here in shock and disbelief. And as much as some would like, they just can't seem to stop talking about it.
I feel like we'll probably never really know why it all happened, all right? But it just makes you sad.
It's peaceful here, very tranquil. It's something you wouldn't even think of around here.
I'm just shocked. I am shocked that anybody could do something like that.
I wouldn't want to be their parents. I feel so bad for the family.
The painful and graphic case is detailed in Cosmo DiNardo's confession made public. He dimed out his 20-year-old cousin, Sean Kratz, as his accomplice, who was arrested late last night in Northeast Philadelphia. He, too, confessed, and both have been charged with murder and related offenses and being held without bail. He tells investigators that on July 5th, he agreed to sell Jimmy Patrick 4 pounds of marijuana for $8,000 and drove him to his family's 90-acre farm. When Patrick only had $800, DiNardo offered to sell him a shotgun. Instead, he then shot Patrick and used a backhoe to bury his body. On July 7th, DiNardo agreed to sell Dean Finisharo marijuana, but first picked up his cousin Sean Kratz. The two planned to rob Finisharo, and DiNardo gave Kratz a .357 Magnum belonging to his mother. They took him to the farm, where Kratz shot him in the head. Also on July 7th, DiNardo meets up with Tom Mayo and Mark Sturgis to make a drug deal. Mayo's car was left at DiNardo's parents' property on Aquaton Road, and they head to the farm where Kratz is waiting. DiNardo shoots Mayo in the back and falls to the ground screaming. Sturgis is shot as he runs away. DiNardo then runs Mayo over with a backhoe. All three bodies are placed in a metal tank DiNardo called the pig roaster and set them on fire. The next day, the men returned to bury the tank 12 feet underground using the backhoe. The motive for all of this?
I'm not really sure if we could ever answer that question.
One thing DA Matt Weintraub is certain of, they may have never found Jimmy Patrick's remains had they not made the plea deal with DiNardo.
And we found him. We found him where we were told we were going to find him, and I don't know if we would have ever.
Weintraub says the victim's family showed tremendous strength as investigators worked to bring their loved ones home.
I hope that I'm never in their shoes, but if I ever were, I pray that I could handle this with the courage and the dignity that they've exhibited.
Now, Weintraub says DiNardo's and Kratz's confessions also led them to the two weapons that were being used in the killings. In exchange for DiNardo's confession, he was spared the death penalty. We're live here in New Hope, Bucks County. I'm Dan Cuellar, Channel 6 Action News. Jim?
Dan, thank you.